This could either be great, or it could go horribly wrong. Well, my money's on number 2. I know you're running out of things to say, Simon, and I know you probably got a lot of baby mama drama on your mind right about now, but the least thing you could do is try not to repeat the same exact line 35 times in the same episode. Wednesday was British Invasion with the top 10 on Season 3 of The X Factor. Last week we said goodbye to Rachel Potter and Sweet Suspense. Now, Rachel was not at all surprising, because we knew she was on borrowed time ever since that wretched 4-chair challenge performance, and her problem last week was she sounded just as bad, but she had already played the I was sick card, and so she had nothing else to fall back on. Sweet Suspense, on the other hand, was a little bit surprising, but in hindsight, it really shouldn't have been, because the bulk of their performances were being carried by other people, so I guess most of the Sweet Suspense singers are still there. They're just singing behind other people now. Anyways, on to this week's performances. The first of the night was Jeff Gutt, who once again reminded us that he's doing this for his son. His son would be just as happy with a Toys R Us gift card, Jeff, so let's cut the crap, alright? Now this week, Kelly sent Jeff out for some boxing lessons with some dude that looked like a Neanderthal. What is her obsession with exercising this season? I just don't get it, and I really did not get her song choice for Jeff this week. Bohemian Rhapsody? What on God's green earth was she thinking? This song would be too big for damn near anybody, but Jeff especially, with his limited range, it just didn't make any sense. Plus, this song is originally, like 4 hours long? So it doesn't lend itself well to a chopped down 2-minute version, since it's missing most of the song. With that said though, I think he did the best that he could do with it. I mean, he sounded decent for most of the song, except for the high parts that he was never going to be able to hit anyway. But what was that old pile of stuff he was sitting on? I couldn't tell if it was an old prop from Game of Thrones or a bunch of junk from the scrapyard. Is the budget really that tight this season? My gosh. And then there was like 4 torches on stage, but one of them wasn't even lit. The producers were probably like, well, we can only afford to light 3 of them. The people, they won't notice. Or maybe the ghost of Freddie Mercury came and blew one of them out. He should have grabbed one of them swords and chopped Jeff into pieces for chopping his song into pieces like that, but whatever. Demi and Simon thought that it was his best performance yet, and Paulina said that she liked it, but she said that she thought the transitions were a little bit rough. Maybe her English teacher hasn't yet taught her how to say that she hated it, because she didn't seem to like it. Next up was Tim Olstad. He said that last week he really liked his performance, which means he has at least one fan, I guess. No, I was really surprised that he wasn't in the bottom 3 last week, but I guess it shouldn't have been all that surprising. A boring ballad singer in the boys category, but looks like he should be in the overs. Oh, you know grandmas all over the country just eat that stuff up. They probably had their little old fingers in them old rotary phones as late as their arthritis would let them, or until they fell asleep at least. Now this week, Tim decided that he was going to surprise the judges and take a big risk by sitting at the piano. Damn, Evel Knievel, walking on the wild side this time around, aren't we? His song this week was Sorry Seems to Be the Hardest Word, which also happens to be Elton John's most boring song ever. And it was just Tim Olstad fine. He sounded fine. I didn't care. The judges pretended to love it. Kelly and Demi even thought it was sexy. How the hell do you know, Demi Lovato? You was looking down the whole time. I couldn't tell if she was scribbling notes or taking a nap. I'm gonna tell y'all what they're doing. They're trying to use reverse psychology on us. Well, because they've been hard on Tim for being boring every week, and now he hasn't even ended up in the bottom 3, and now suddenly he's Robin Thicke? Oh, give me a break. They're trying to get people to stop voting for this season's underdog, and I don't know if it's going to work, but I do know that if he lands in the bottom 3 this week, or any week for that matter, he is toast. They aren't ever going to save him. Next up is Khaya Cohen. Now, Khaya had to be saved by the judges in last week's sing-off, and she did outsing Rachel Potter. Of course, that doesn't necessarily mean a whole lot, but now, Khaya and Demi both believe that she landed in the bottom 3 because she's unlikable. Clearly, they've been putting too much stock into Simon Cowell's comments, because I don't think that was her problem at all. Her problem last week is that she sounded just a mess. She just did too many things with a simple song, and it's a problem that followed her into this week, too. The song Demi gave her this week was Let It Be by the Beatles, and all I could think about during this performance was Let It Be Over. I thought it was all over the place. It was like 5 different Khayas singing 5 different parts. If she could stick with one, maybe it would have been okay, or maybe they could put her in the groups category. This song is usually a crowd pleaser, but the arrangement was too slow though. When it started, the audience, they tried to clap along, but it didn't work because they couldn't find the beat. Wasn't their fault though. I don't know whose idea it was to take a slow song and make it even slower, but it didn't work for me. Kelly wants Khaya to round her vowels off. Paulina wants her to step it up in the wardrobe department. I don't know if anybody should be taking fashion advice from Pal, but whatever. And Simon acted like he didn't recognize the song, so I think he hated it. But once again, he acted like personality was the problem for her. That's not the problem. Next up was Josh Levi. Paulina got his name right for a change, so kudos to her for that. Not sure how helpful her advice for him this week was, though. She wanted him to tell a joke? What the hell kind of nonsense mentoring is that? He's trying to be a singer, Paulina, not a dang sitcom star. I gotta be honest though, I thought his corny little jokes were freaking hilarious. And when he told that jalapeno joke to Paulina, that was so bold and so funny, and she didn't understand a word of it. It was like he was speaking English or something. Anyway, the song that Paulina picked for Josh this week was Sweet Dreams by the Eurythmics. I love this song, but I did not like this arrangement. It's like changing the song just for the sake of changing it. He sounded great, so I'll give him that. But the antique phone booth and all the corny dancing cops didn't make any sense, and the little dance break sounded like he was about to lapse into We Found Love, which would have been appropriate because we know he loves Rihanna. But like I said, he sounded great, so I'll blame the flaws in this performance on his mentor, which is basically what the other judges did. Demi compared him to Chris Brown. Oh, y'all be quiet with them Chris Brown comparisons. Josh has been far nicer to Rihanna than Chris Brown ever was. Well, even if he did butcher a couple of her songs, at least he never beat the shit out of her. Simon thought that the staging was insane. He said that Paulina must have been drunk. Boy, she got defensive, didn't she? She was like, I don't drink. And then she was like, I don't drink while I work. She was so mad by the time it was all said and done. I think she might have been drunk then, because I've known a few alcoholics in my day, and they always act like that when they get caught. Next up was Alex and Sierra. They were pretty rattled this week because Simon didn't like their last performance. Y'all really ought not worry about that, because let us not forget, Simon thought Sweet Suspense was the bee's knees last week, and they got the lowest number of votes, so forget what Simon says. Now, this week in their intro, Alex said that they've been working on this dream together for as long as they've been dating, but, is that why you auditioned solo for American Idol last season, Alex? What, does he think we don't know how to use Google or something? I don't know, but anyways, the song Simon picked for Alex and Sierra this week was Best Song Ever by One Direction. Well, so much for letting them pick their own songs, I reckon. I thought this was a predictable song choice. You knew Simon was going to give one of his acts a One Direction song. We knew it was going to be a stripped-down version, but I just don't think it worked. Alex and Sierra are pretty much experts at turning corny pop songs into little campfire ditties, but there are some big pop songs that only work as big pop songs, and this is one of them. So you can stand on London Bridge and strum the guitar all you want. It was a Simon Says performance, and if Simon didn't own One Direction, he would not have liked this performance at all, and he would not have given it a standing ovation. And I say that as somebody that's actually grown to like Alex and Sierra, and I think they're probably going to win, or at least they're going to come close to it if they don't, but I thought the judges were a little too harsh on Sierra this week. Well, it's true that Alex is the more comfortable singer. The singing wasn't the problem, though. The song was. Next up was Ryan Paige. Now, when Demi was introducing her, she gave a shout-out to her church. Well, I thought that was a little bit desperate. It was like, oh, vote for Ryan. She believes in Jesus. Most of the contestants do. Now, this week, the song Demi gave Ryan was Your Song by Elton John, which is overdone on these shows, so I was expected to hate it, but I actually thought it sounded quite lovely. Well, she didn't sound perfect, but it was a pretty tender performance, and the drama was scaled back this time. Oh, it was still there, but it was scaled back. And she actually let out a couple of smiles this time around, so that was nice. Now, there was a bit of weirdness at the end of the song that was like unnecessary runs that didn't belong there, and I don't know whose idea it was to make her look like a wood nymph this week, but it did kind of work with this performance, so I thought it was Ryan's best performance yet. Still don't think she has a chance at winning, though. The judges loved it. Kelly loves Ryan because she's human. Paulina loves the beautiful filling of her soul. And Simon thought it sounded like a record. Next up was Carlito Olivera. He was upset because the judges didn't love him last week, but he says he's been at rock bottom before, so it's just another mountain to climb. He even claims that he was homeless and lived in his car. Take that hard knock story and tell it to somebody else, because I am just not buying it. First off, if you can afford a car, you ain't homeless. You can sell that car and put a roof over your head. And second, you were in Menudo for 2 years. So stop trying to put yourself in the same sympathetic category as Vietnam veterans that have to eat garbage and sleep under bridges, okay? Because you ain't never been that bad off, and you ain't never gonna be. Anyways, the song Paulina gave Carlito this week was Satisfaction by the Rolling Stones. I guess she figured that if an ugly-ass old man like Mick Jagger could make the ladies throw their panties on stage with a song like this, then why not Carlito? Problem is, it's just not a very good song. It's fine for established artists to appease a crowd with, but it's a basic monotone anthem that has no place in singing competitions. There were no strippers performing with Carlito this week, so that was refreshing, but the usual dozen dancing ladies were replaced with a dozen dancing Carlitos, so that was odd. There was like 20 Carlitos in the background, and it looked like he was still dressed for 80s week, but with the fingerless gloves and that awful scarf around his neck. I don't know why he always wears the scarves around his neck. Now, a couple of weeks ago, I was watching an old episode of Law & Order SVU, and there was a woman on there that always wore scarves like that, but that was because she was into autoerotic asphyxiation, so hopefully Carlito ain't doing none of that nonsense, because you could easily hang yourself with doing all that, but he kind of hung himself with this performance, so. Next up was Lillie McCloud. Apparently the afro is gone for good now, because during her intro, we saw about 10 or 12 different wigs on Lily's poor little old head. I mean, she is getting worse than Cher with all those wigs. I'm not even convinced that she even has hair at this point, but whatever. The song Kelly gave her this week was This Woman's Work, and Lillie said that she had never heard it before. Well, girl, you ain't been missing much. No, I thought she looked like an old Whitney Houston this week in a wedding dress with less sweat, standing on top of a Westminster Abbey or something. She sounded flawless, but Kelly is just not giving her the right songs. No imagination whatsoever. Like I said, flawless vocal, but she probably didn't make Cara Diagordi cry with this song like Michael Lynch did back on that other show a couple of years ago. She is the strongest vocalist going late in the show, though, so she should be okay, and the judges loved her, but Simon put her in the danger zone at the end of the show anyway. Next up was Ellona Santiago. The song Demi gave her this week was Burned by Ellie Goulding, and during rehearsal it was painfully obvious that this was just not the right song choice. And Demi should have said, okay, this ain't working, let's do another song, but instead she just forged ahead. I just don't know what Demi is doing this season, and I don't think she really does either. I mean, you take your strongest singer and give her songs that she isn't comfortable with week after week after week. What the hell kind of ass-backwards strategy is that? I just don't know. I mean, I like Demi, and I've always thought she had the potential to be a good judge, but as a mentor, she kinda sucks. Ellona needs, and she deserves songs that she can do well with, because we know she can slay the right songs. So Demi needs to be giving her songs that will compliment her and not rattle her. Performance-wise, I thought this was a cute little performance. The big old hair was a bit much, though, but I thought the setup was nice. The vocal was just not good this week, though, at all. And at the end, when the dancers carried Ellona on her back, it looked like a rip-off of something that recently happened on The Voice. You ain't Cat Robichaux, girl. The judges had nice things to say, but Simon called her a dancing, singing puppet. I thought that's what this show was looking for. And the last of the night, in the pimp spot, it's Simon's Baby's Restless Road. This week's manly intro activity for Restless Road was picking up girls. Now we've seen horseback riding and football and playing pool, now flirting. It all feels like Simon's attempt to make this group seem manly, which, to me, Simon only does this kind of stuff when he thinks there's a problem, so he must think he has a trio of pansies on his hands, best I can tell. But whatever. Restless Road's song this week was Fix You by Coldplay, and Simon even phoned in his mentoring session, which is not that much different from what he normally does, but if the plan was to make all the guys equal members this week, because you know that was the complaint last week, that the middle guy was the center of attention, well, they failed miserably because the middle guy got 2 disembodied heads in the background and the other 2 only got 1, so they all sounded about as okay as they have ever sounded, but the Scotty McCreery wannabe's voice did not mesh well with the other guys, and the hottie, he's trying his damnedest to grow a little beard. That buzz on his face was adorable. The lady judges didn't love Restless Road this week. They didn't think it was cohesive, but I thought it was as cohesive as it ever has been, which is never, but they're just now pointing all this out? I don't know. Anyway, tonight's another double elimination, and it's almost impossible to predict, but I would say both groups are probably going to be safe. That's a given. And I think the overs are probably safe too, Jeff and Lillie, mainly because even though they want to make this a young, hip show that shares a fan base with One Direction, I think the bulk of the audience is older than that, so I would predict Khaya in the bottom 3 again this week with, I don't know, Carlito and either Tim, Josh, or Ellona. I know, way to narrow it down, Joe. Anyway, leave me a comment and let me know what you thought about the show, and I'll see y'all next time.